Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Hey, Claudius. You killed my father. Big mistake.
Welcome. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rob Wilson. I'm a artist, a comic book creator, and a person that talks on the mic. Storyteller, philosopher, all that kind of stuff. Part-time music maker, although I can't remember when the last time I actually did that. But so it is, so things are, and so it shall be. Welcome to Strictly Art Live, number 72, on this special edition. We were going to spend the next hour deep diving into all things that is the Thunderbolts. Latest MCU movie that is out in theaters right now, came out this weekend. And off the break, I want to give a shout out to Mo Biggs. Said, Rob, you're live. Hell yeah, brother. I didn't know whether you were still around, but I know I tend to live stream in the morning, and that tends to conflict with other people's schedules, and I completely understand that. That's fine. So we're tiptoeing into from the afternoon to the evening on this lovely May 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd, which is great stuff. So, the Thunderbolts. I went into this movie with my pops after 24 hours of being up. Coming straight off of work, being up, driving to go see my pops, who is about 2 hours away from me. So, I didn't fall asleep once. Let me go ahead and put it that way off the break. That is the standard to which we're kicking off the show with. And it's important to note that because, hey, if anybody fell asleep during this movie, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. And such is life. But here's what I'm going to let you know. That movie kept my attention and explored some really, truly interesting and disastrous things. At the same time, it really tapped into some very scary things, some deep, dark things, and it appealed once again to humanity. It's important to note that. I have to emphasize that by every means because of the average mindset that people may go into thinking about this movie. They may say, oh no, it's another Marvel movie, terrible, blah, blah, blah. Well, you already got terrible players in the game, no doubt about it. We've seen plenty of Red Guardian in the MCU, Marvel's What If. That's been going on. And the Red Guardian has maintained a consistency. David Arbor, in my opinion, has done a great job from Black Widow when he was first introduced into the Black Widow movie, all the way up till now. He has maintained a consistent behavior with him. You know what you're going to get, etc., etc. So, because of that, it's going to be big laughs and fun time with this guy. So that's one of the things that's already. If you don't like Florence Pugh, the White Widow or whatever she calls herself, I get it. That is completely fine. I'm not a big fan of hers as well. She played her role, pretty carefree, pretty girl bossish in the beginning of the movie. But over time, she changed, and we're going to talk about that change, which I think is duly noted. U.S. agent, played by Wyatt Russell, been a fan favorite since day one. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was a terrible show. I think he was one of the best things to come out of that. So we got some of the worst. Ghost is whatever. Taskmaster's whatever. Those are the people that I really could care less about. Is what it is. So You had some semi decent team. You had a heavy hitter, lefter. I guess you had two types of Captain America. You had a Russian Winter Soldier. Oh, and you had the actual Winter Soldier himself, um, kicking doors in, but being somewhat diplomatic. So for me, I went into this movie to watch and see Sentry, and that worked out with me just fine. Just fine. I got to see a Sentry origin. I got to see, Sentry evolution, and then I saw the Void, which was wonderful. So this movie was great for me. That's what I wanted to see. And off the break, let's see how long we in here. I got to time this. I got to time this. How long have we been started? All right, so about 13 minutes. Mo Big said, "Yeah, I'm not a morning person." So off the break, 13 minutes in, technically, probably even less. I've been talking. The Thunderbolts has, let's see, who the hell directed the Thunderbolts? Excuse me. Who directed? Looking for lots of, let's see, Kevin Feige's producer. Dang. Oh, Jake Schreier. Jake Schreier, my hat goes off to you because you did not make Sentry retarded, unlike James Gunn. Yeah, I said it. I said it. James Gunn, you're a bum and you're done. Your Superman movie's gonna be garbage. Your Superman's already garbage because you think your Superman is supposed to be you. And it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Let's see. Glad you liked it. I'm waiting until it comes to streaming to see it. Smart. That's the best way. I had this prediction, Mo Biggs, that unfortunately, and this is how low the bar is, we are going to see Fantastic Four come out. We're going to see Superman come out. I think Thunderbolts is going to be better than the other two. That shouldn't happen. But me personally, I think that's what's going to happen. Because, this guy named James Gunn, and I believe, Mo Biggs, you've been here since the beginning, since I first started my channel, where I talked about James Gunn's chapter 1, gods and demons, or whatever the hell he's talking about. That never came to fruition. So that was a fake out. That was a fugazi. And we saw things change over time. We went from, chapter 1, gods and demons, then Superman Legacy, and then Superman with everybody in it, and it's just a big circus. It's been a big circus for a hot minute. So it's so confusing. But aside from that, Thunderbolts, you got your usual, your White Widow intro battle. She does her thing and talks about how bored she is with her life, XYZ, yada yada yada. And the wild card is actually Florence DeFontaine, the MCU's version of Tulsi Gabbard, who's both a financial benefactor of superhero or super powered secret experimentation, and she's also a politician. So she swings through both doors, and that's what made this movie somewhat interesting too. It had a pretty good political swing to it that wasn't a beat you down message. Obviously, the Florence Pugh thing was annoying in the beginning, but they kept real to the fact that, hey, she is only human. She's not a super soldier. You had 1, 2, 3 super soldiers in this movie. And it's really interesting in correlation if you go back to Captain America Civil War, where Zemo went to find the other super soldiers or winter soldiers. and he gunned them down while they were frozen. And then some other super soldiers' serums got stolen by the Flag Smashers and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which made 5 more. And I think only one of them survived or something like that, which was a U.S. agent. And then we come down to the top 3 pinnacle ones since they can't get Chris Evans back. That's an interesting dip into history to understand where we're at. It may be confusing. It may not even be important to the average viewer, but it is interesting to see how far that whole deep dive into the super soldier thing. Oh, not to mention, in the Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, we got to see super soldier Peggy Carter. That's how things change with that. Now, I'm glad she wasn't in this movie. I will say this. With the twists and turns of Sentry's transformation towards, or the bigger threat, they did more twists and turns and mind-bending things that I think they were able to do without James Gunn. One, because James Gunn's garbage. Had to throw that jab out there. And 2, they've had enough practice with, what's his name, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and the powers of Scarlet Witch, like the twists and turns, to really apply all of that in correlation for a really scary and mind-bending story once you really dive into the essence of the void. Again, you had your typical stuff. Hey, I'm this character. Hey, I'm that character. I was assigned to do this. I was assigned to do that. That kind of thing, which was the initial fight and conflict of who's going to fight who. There was an early warning of, what Sentry might be, and apparently there was a Sentry program. They got to make these folks in batches, right? Got to make Yellow Jackets in batches. Got to make Winter Soldiers in batches. All these. You can't just make one, but only normally one survives to be unique. It's interesting how that works. I guess with the government and secret experimentation, it's a numbers game. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, it was pretty interesting to see where this all went. And I think I got cheated out of my Rumble feed, but it is what it is. It's pretty interesting to see how everything turned out. The Just Bob reference, I was praying and waiting so bad because Robert Reynolds, that's Sentry's name, the guy who signed up to be a better person. His story is so funny because for 2 reasons. He kept saying, "I'm just Bob," that's who I am, and I was dying for them to say it. They wouldn't say it. I was hoping that someone would say, "What about Bob?" You know what I'm saying? That would be a classic shout out to the awesome 1990s Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray comedy, where Richard Dreyfuss was a psychologist and Bob was the patient. He had some mental struggles. But I highly recommend checking out that movie. That movie's hilarious. I was hoping they were going to say that in this, but they didn't. It's fair enough. But what also makes Robert Reynolds a pretty unique character as they dive more into him is that he just wanted to get better. He didn't think that so much responsibility would be placed upon him, And we got Mo Biggs. He says, "Great movie." Yeah. What about Bob? It's up there. What about Bob? Captain Ron. Those were classic '90s movies of like the person that wouldn't go away. The family loves him, but the main person or the husband is like, "I hate this guy. I want him to get away from my family." So those are pretty funny. But yeah. So seeing Bob's evolution into things, and you kind of knew. And here's what made this movie good. Was it predictable? Yes. Was it comic book accurate to some degree? I'd say yes. And sometimes that's okay. Every movie, fans want to see comic book accurate movies for the most part. Even if they haven't read every comic book, they still want to see stuff that's accurate. And I'd say they have a right to, because in this process, you can do some twists and turns here and there, but they want to know that what they're watching is still, Captain America. What they're watching is still Spider-Man. That kind of thing. They want to know this and actually be assured. They don't want the character to be so far off of their course that they've historically known them that it's like, what am I watching? So, yes, for the most part, Bob's random. He's random as hell. In the cave and stuff, and they're trying to get out, and they're dealing with Fontaine's army and all that. And then we start to see the evolution of Bob. But it's like, okay, it's coming, but you want to go through that journey, with the other characters in the movie. That's at least how I look at it. Mo Big said, "I'm a sailor now. I sail, and I just let the boat do the work. That's my secret." Mo Biggs, are you telling me you a Navy man? Are you a Navy diver? Last time I checked, according to Master Chief Billy Sunday, Navy diver is not a fighting man. He's a salvage expert. If it's lost, he swims and gets it. If it's dug in the water, he digs it up. But if you just on a boat, you're doing your thing, I respect that too. That was a easy cameo for me to throw out some Men of Honor quotes. Love that movie. But yeah, the journey of Bob, and for me, once he showed up and things kind of, you saw how insecure he was, or wasn't sure about himself, and he kept recommending that he stayed. He kept recommending that he would stay behind. He said, "Nah, that's a line from What About Bob?" Oh man, see, now I gotta rewatch that movie. That's a classic. My mom couldn't stand Bob. She was like, "Man, I wish Bob go away." It just goes in that line of classic movies. What About Bob? Captain Ron, The Burbs with Tom Hanks. All those are great movies. So, once Robert Reynolds showed up, that's pretty much where my attention went towards. As I mentioned, I went there for Sentry, and I got Sentry and more. So that's how I looked at it. And Sentry, I think, was portrayed much better, way better than Adam Warlock when James Gunn directed Guardians 3. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what I believe. And you could clearly see it. James Gunn cared more about the Guardians than he did Adam Warlock. And that is sad. Because if you're introducing an amazing character like that, you definitely want to give him time to have a spotlight. But who am I to tell James Gunn that he should try not to make a movie that fails? Oh man. Mo Big said, my mom hated him too. Yeah, that was just such a classic movie. So yeah, we get Bob's transformation. Leading up to that, there were these innuendos of people being taken to a dark place of their past. Little did they know that it was actually Bob, and he wouldn't really own up to it or fess up to it until he got captured. He got his first display of his powers and really took off. I mean, the dude took off as a decoy to save the rest of the team that was planning the escape. He ran around, started shooting, which he just learned to shoot at that moment. And that was great. It's always great when you see non-shooters like in movies, like rage out and struggle to shoot. I don't want to be around people that don't know how to shoot. I'm sorry. Safety first. But it's funny in movies, okay? It's funny in movies. So, yeah, Bob, you know, he gets lethal force placed upon him, and Bob down. But of course, as they continue to drive on, the Thunderbolts. Um, that's where Bob reemerges along with his powers that he's not too sure on how to use completely yet. So, he takes a risk, and that risk lands him in a crater, unfortunately. But this is an origin. I love to see a character, like a superhero character, or just a character in general, with powers or, going through their struggle. I love to see the crawl, walk, run phases, because you can kind of, run with them or crawl with them during that journey. Which is why, once again, I will emphasize how much garbage James Gunn's Superman will be, because it would not really be much of an origin story, to my knowledge. He's already in the thick of it. People that have reviewed the movie have already said that it feels like you're starting in the middle of a movie. So there's no like true exposition. There's just more of, hey, this is happening. Clark's here. Um, Lois Lane's there, and that's pretty much it. Go to Smallville for when I'm feeling down, because mutant monkeys are trying to bring me down, man. They're trying to bring me down. In fact, before we continue, I gotta do this. Because YouTube, they suppressed it, and I think it's only fair that I go ahead and uplift it for the sake of exposure. And please, check this out also in your free time as well. Like it, because YouTube, they tried to copyright strike me off the break when I put it up, even though I had the rights to use the music, and therefore the ban was lifted. But definitely, let's check this out right quick. Speaking of mutant monkeys, because that's the thing in James Gunn's Superman, should I say, or just DC thing. So yeah, let's take a look at this and tell me what you think, because the mutant monkeys have been deployed.
No, the other thing. Come on, I know it's just dangling. Come on, let me hear you say it just once. Come on.
You're insane.
No! No, the other thing. Come on, I know it's just dangling out the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
Superman will never.
Wrong!
James Gunn, you're a bum. You're a bum. 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 You made a Superman movie with a highlight.
Turn two of the sharpest men I know into his personal flying monkeys.
Monkeys? I do not understand.
I do.
I understood that reference.
Come on, let me hear you say it just once. Come on.
You're insane.
No! No, the other thing.
James Gunn, you're a bum. Bum, bum, bum. For making mutant monkeys the highlight of your movie. How in the world? Hashtag super shit? Well, you, sir, you, sir, you, sir, your movie is going to be super shit. And that's why you put it in there. Mo Big said that wrong part is the best scene in Superman Returns. Hell yeah. Kevin Spacey stole the show. Mo Big said, I think Crypto is trying to drag Superman to a better movie. Right. Because, oh, man. You know, I feel bad for Corn Sweat. Like, he didn't know what he was getting into. They set him up, literally. And trust me, I know the concept of being set up for failure. And yeah, he got the short end of the stick. He just doesn't even know it, man. You know, the highlight of this Superman movie is James Gunn, not Superman. How is that possible? Huh? How is that possible? The highlight of the Superman movie is James Gunn. Was he going to come out like Stan Lee and be like, well, I guess one person can make a difference? And James Gunn's going to snap his fingers? Absolutely despicable. Despicable. All right. Let's get back to, things. But I had to show that clip because, it got suppressed, and I put some effort into it. And I got to highlight some previous artwork that I did a year ago, and made a video. Little did I know that I was able to foretell the future. That artwork from a year ago was forthcoming. The onslaught of mutant monkeys that was headed Superman's way. Hey, what can I say? I was accurate. My prediction was accurate somehow. Even though I was commissioned for somebody else, but I'm hyping it up. Internet sensationalism, you know how it goes. But going back to what we have in the Thunderbolts, we got many different aspects where, now that the gang's kind of together, but they didn't plan on being so. There's, some rough steps where people are trying to work together. And I think they're trying to escape too because, they run into Red Guardian. And he's loud as ever. My dad loved Red Guardian. He was just, somebody said it, like he's like that person that's not that funny, but always tries to be. And then they come out with a couple golden goose jokes that are hilarious and spot on. I can agree with that. I've liked Red Guardian since David Arbor donned the red mask, even though he was a spy and he worked for, I believe, KGB in some form or fashion. I have not mastered his history, but nonetheless, to say that that character is funny is an understatement. I definitely have to emphasize that. So yeah, they all pair up, they hop in Red Guardian's limo, and so on and so forth, and things went down where they were being chased by Fontaine's mercenaries or mini army, and things got somewhat terrible because he had no weapon systems, nothing to back it up, nothing except for a Molotov cocktail. And in comes Bucky. Bucky, while playing the politician the majority of the movie, in the beginning, he actually had been working with a certain congressman played by Wendell Pierce, and they're trying to bring down Dave Fontaine, who was former FBI director, which is interesting. or I'm sorry, CIA director. What they call her, FBI? Huh, must be tripping. But yeah, she had too much dirt on her, so they're trying to impeach and remove her and lock her up. You know, like the usual tropes that we've come to know with real life. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too over the top. You can have some hearings in a superhero movie without making it overly political. Tony Stark did it in Iron Man 2. You know, he made an ass of Gary Shamblin, and Gary Shamblin got his revenge at the end by poking him with a pen, and he hit his pun. That was pretty cool. Gary Shamblin's last performance, by the way. So that's kind of like the little mini history with Dave Fontaine and Bucky and Wendell Pierce's character. I can't remember his name in the actual. I'm looking right now. Bear with me. Lots of names. It's somewhere right now. Bear with me. This music sounds terrible. What the hell? That sounded terrible. I was losing my mind for a minute. Let's switch it up. Wendell Pierce as Gary. And that's all they gave him. All right, so moving on. Bucky subdues the mercenary team, and they move on to. He drops out 2 of the mercenary Humvees, and then takes out the 3rd, and then he also takes out the Red Guardian's limo. So, as they thought he was the cavalry, he actually ended up being the capturer, because he wanted to go ahead and have them as evidence for the upcoming hearing that he planned with Gary, the congressman. And things change. We hear about Bob as Bucky heard it from as Bucky heard about it from the Thunderbolts when he had them all tied up. He had them all captured. That's pretty funny. Mobic said, at least it's not feeding the ducks. I never want to hear that StreamYard song again. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Feeding the ducks. And Duck by the Lake. That was some crazy stuff. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. So, yeah, Bucky captures them all. And then once he gets word, because he has an inside source within Fontaine's group, who he tried to recruit, let her know that, hey, Fontaine's dangerous. You don't want to be tied up with her, XYZ. Anything you have would be helpful. Do it now before you get caught later, and then I won't be able to help you. That kind of usual dialogue. And she feeds him a little bit of info and then starts talking about Bob. And then Dave Fontaine goes on a delusional streak where she wants to introduce Bob to the world as the new Sentry, as the Sentry, because all the other test subjects died, couldn't survive. You got this mental issue, child abuse, drug addict who wanted to go through rehab, now has these powers to which he didn't ask for. And that's what makes Sentry, again, very unique to me, in my opinion, because he's a character that he's a human being that didn't ask to be Superman. He didn't know that's where he was going with his journey. And because of that, much has been laid upon him and much is expected. Now, he did get get to practice a little bit of his powers thanks to Dave Fontaine, who will take credit for everything. But at the same time, his abilities did lash out on her, and she was ready to dip because he scared the crap out of her. But he said, he can control it. He is telepathic. That's a very dangerous combination. He's got so many powers, it's ridiculous. Super speed, endurance, telepathic, telekinesis, and super strength. He can fly. He can do damn near everything but shoot eye beams, but I don't know if he can. Let me know. So that is a huge list of I think he has like a paragraph worth of powers. And with that, again, a lot to think about and comprehend for his origin story. But regardless, he managed to put on a good display. And then we find ourselves at where it all began, at Avengers Tower. So the Sentry was being held there because she purchased a building way back in Spider-Man Homecoming. So it's interesting how far back the history of this movie goes, and what parts they take from it to create, this long web being weaved. Very interesting. I thought, in a way it was cool too, because we finally got to find out who bought the damn building. People were speculating for years that an investor bought the building to make it the Baxter building for the Fantastic Four. So far, that ended up becoming not true. But Dave Fontaine having it, and it ended up being a spot where she was holding the Sentry while he was gaining insight into his powers and all that XYZ. The Thunderbolts finally convinced Bucky to let him go and everything for the sake of capturing the Sentry, because they told him and his undercover source, Dave Fontaine undercover source, how dangerous, how big of a bad he is because of what he's capable of doing. So they all band together, and it's like, who was it? Red Guardian was asking him, which super serum did you take? So there's a bunch of different kinds and all that, which I thought was pretty funny. And he asked him, do you have a plan? He was like, a plan? He just came in kicking butt. Just open door lobby of what used to be Stark Tower, then Avengers Tower. They're just wrecking shop. And Dave Fontaine's like, hey, I just got this place remodeled. Doors open, just come up. So we got a pretty cool fight scene that got cut short because I guess they didn't want to spend too much time on that. You imagine if those guys, the struggle Avengers, that's what I'm calling them, they're Thunderbolts, struggle Avengers, fought their way throughout that whole building. They'd be tired as hell once they got a chance to actually meet the Sentry. And that's where we got our main introduction of him in his full garb and the blonde hair, which was rather quick. But Dave Fontaine wanted him up and ready because the media was on the way. Which, by the way, this is the most inaccurate media of all time because it took them forever to actually get there. So they show the Sentry. He has a suit on and everything. He still recognizes them. He's like, hey guys, so and so and so. And Dave Fontaine identifies them as criminals. And he was like, I don't want to fight you guys. I know you guys. You guys are cool. He sees them as friends. Who throws the first blow? Let me remember. I think it was it Bucky? It might have been Bucky or U.S. Agent. It was one of the two. Because I think it was Bucky, because one, he didn't know him, so he treated him like a threat. And then we got busy. That fight from the Thunderbolts to Sentry was exactly what I wanted to see. It was great. Like the fight scene, that fight scene of what he's capable of doing, that took my money, and I loved it. Unfortunately, it was short. He was no match for him, or they were no match for him, obviously, and that's why I put him in the thumbnail. Sentry pretty much has that's him as the silhouette. And dang man, Rumble really messed me up. But yeah, that's why I put him there as that silhouette, because there's too many Thunderbolts, and when I put together thumbnails, I'm a bit of an artiste, so I try to make a cinematic, thumbnail that lasts for all time, to be studied in the future by others, so that way they may do great things as well. I even put effort into my thumbnails. Imagine that. So yeah, they can't handle them. They get their butt kicked, and yeah, they get swept out basically. So the battle then comes in when he starts to realize that he has so much power that, one, they're no longer a threat, and two, why should he listen to Dave Fontaine? But just like any other truly slick and dastardly villain, whenever you create a weapon of mass destruction in a somewhat human form, you want to have something that takes him out. Maybe I took a bathroom break when they explained it, but I did not know how that kill switch worked. But of course it was remote controlled, and he was about to light her up before she used it. Well, he stopped her from using it, one, but her assistant, helped her out and activated the kill switch, and that, of course, unfortunately, activated the void, which is the other part of Robert Reynolds. He's not the innocent, fun, happy-go-lucky guy. He is all about despair, pain, suffering, void. And it's interesting, even though void is technically a void of everything, but that's the name of the character, it is filled of just all negative thoughts, all bad things. So in that process, to which, some of the Thunderbolts got a taste of the void, it got way worse once the void took over the body of Robert Reynolds. Well, Big said, no thumbnails complete without AI art and text saying my channel is under attack or Disney wants you dead. Right. Hey, that's the part where I fail. I fail it every time, 100%, Mo Biggs. I forget. Sometimes, have I used AI art for my thumbnails? I might have. I've used AI art for a clip, but I don't think I have. Man, I'm falling behind. Help me. Help me. You better. No, that is 100% accurate, Moby. That's the ultimate selling point. My channel's under attack. In my case, my clip was under attack. But hey, I got it easily squared away because I pay money for some of the video editing stuff that I use. Well, yeah, I do, because I want to pull out the best, production value that I can that software may have to offer. That kind of thing. But every week, no. Oh no, my channel got taken down by hackers and all this crazy stuff. It's like, oh, okay. When does a disaster end? When does the end of the world disaster stop? It's a trip. All right, so from there, once Sentry switched to the void, that dude was ominous, very scary, and the way they made him look was oof, because you really couldn't see him. He was just, even if you want to say they black-faced him, but his whole body was dark and void and black, so you couldn't really see his face. You could see the shimmer, a small shine in his eyes, but it looked accurate to me. It looked great, and he was just straight up shadowing people, by the wave of his hand, he was just like putting people in the shadow realm. This dude was straight up Yu-Gi-Oh in New York. It was great. I loved it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I didn't know how they were going to solve that. But she emphasized, what's her name? White Widow or whatever. She emphasized, this is one of the first things that the first time I've ever seen this in a movie heavily like this. To go from a girl boss to admitting defeat. She conveyed to her father, the Red Guardian, how much she failed. And in tears. And for me, I applaud that moment because it showed that she couldn't do everything. And that's an honest and accurate depiction of if you did have a female superhero that would have her vulnerable moments. You know, she's not a dude, straight up. You know, so I think that was quite accurate to display that. And him being the father figure, he was there for her. Out of all of his jokes, he knew, the Red Guardian knew when to jump in and actually be a father as best he could. He thought at one point she didn't want him around. Now, sure, some other channels may call it a group therapy session, but I think it's a very relatable concept in that movie about family and when they have their fallouts, and then when they're ready to when they break down, that family member that maybe got pushed away or that stayed away, that family member knows when to step back in and help that person when they need it. Great story. Great presentation. That's what I got out of it when I watched that. And I thought it was a very unique thing for the MCU to explore that to that degree. Because White Widow had a pretty rough childhood with the things that she had done, and she got reminded by it by the Void, you know, in addition to what she already remembers on a regular basis. So I think that was very good. That was a very good display of, aside from all her training, the suffering that she went through. I applaud it. And the other thing that I thought was really unique is that once she realized that, you know, Red Guardian reminded her that she was a person that played the goalie in soccer and stuff, that she wanted to help people even if they made a mistake, she'd be there for them. He enforced to make sure that she lived up to her character when she was young. And that was cool. So therefore, she took a huge leap. And while the Void was sending people to the Shadow Realm, she stepped up to the Shadow Realm. Respect. And Red Guardian lost his mind. We thought she was gone. You know, I thought she was gone. And he was rage in pain, knowing that he lost his daughter. Very human, very relatable event. That moment was really good for that movie. And I haven't seen something like that as gut-wrenching for an MCU movie in a long time. So I give much respect to that. Again, James Gunn, you weren't part of that, so therefore you get no credit, buddy. To go from, you know, you got a team that sucks. You know you don't have the best players. You know everybody doesn't like the Thunderbolts. You know they screwed up at some points or another. You know at one point they were once villains. But out of all of that, they managed to scrap together some kind of guts to say, you know, let's at least fight to try to do something. We're not the best, but we're not the worst. And even with, what's the name? U.S. Agent. He mentioned during the movie that he had a wife and kids, and he still kind of put on the poster boy look that, you know, hey, I'm a lot better than the rest of you, you know. Well, meanwhile, you know, he walked out on his wife and kids because he was so pissed that social media, talk bad about his image. Now, you be smart, James Gunn, if you kept that scene with the mutant monkeys just out of the movie, because Thunderbolts already did the social media bit without the mutant monkeys. I'm just saying. I am just saying. What's going on, Levi? How you doing, man? He says, afternoon, Rob. How was y'all's show on was it the Saturday Madness Hangout? I trust it was well. I'm not going to be on here for too much longer, but I'm just kind of covering the Thunderbolts. So yeah, once it got to those parts where the team was defeated, Sentry lit that ass up, hands down. It was no contest. It was brutal, and the fact that he was that he has like psychic abilities, he learned very fast, you know. But after that team got lit up, the Void showed up, and then you know, started creating disaster. In addition to sending people to the Shadow Realm, a lot of the damage and debris that was done started falling down on New York bystanders. The team got a chance to work together and you know, help out. And I'm saying this not in order, but you know, I had to emphasize the emotional gripping in some of those parts between the Red Guardian and the White Widow. So she steps in onto the stage of the Void, and she hops into the Shadow Realm, and it's a twisted place. I think it's a more twisted place than Scarlet Witch's powers. More dangerous than any multiverse we've seen in Doctor Strange 1 or 2. The Void is just jacked up, man, and oof. It might, for anybody that goes to see this movie, it might actually remind you of something that happened in your childhood. It might remind you of some things that you didn't want to revisit anymore. And that's why I think this movie is different from any other MCU movie. Something that every single human being has had is something rough or something painful in their childhood that maybe they compartmentalized, but it's still there. Time heals all wounds, so they say, but the wound's still there. The mark that it left is still there. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but it's the way the Void is. You know, White Widow had to deal with her childhood trauma, and they replayed a scene a couple times, so she got forced to have to deal with it over and over. And she even tried to intervene, and intervening actually caused her to sit back and watch it being played over and over and over again. You know, if hell was a concept where you relive your worst moments, that was it. Only in this movie they called it the Void, and that's what it was. It was literally a being of complete despair and utter suffering. Now, she went from one scene to another scene, and it was her where she got like super drunk. She was in the bathroom, and her cell woke her up and, you know, knocked her across the room, and she had to repeat the scene again, bro. That is so brutal. And especially if you know it's you. In her case, it was her. So it's very crazy and twisted type of suffering. I would compare it almost to As Above, So Below. If you ever seen that horror movie, that was that was depicted as some pretty brutal trauma. So, long story short, as we found that the Void is hard to beat because it brings out the worst in you. We find that the heroes have to work together, and Ghost comes up with a theory that just because White Widow went through there, she might not be completely, 86. So because of that, they take the leap and they all go into the void, and then they try to look for, they team up. White Widow, she finds Bob. What about Bob, right? And there comes to a consensus that he's in the safest place he could possibly be, which kind of looked like the room from Ready Player One, but who knows? And he's just kind of like avoiding the void. I guess that's the best thing you can do. Well, the void has his body. He just tries to, he's his normal, blissfully ignorant self, so to speak, but he knows in a way. Like the guy who played Robert Reynolds, I think he did a good job for what that character was, because you're dealing with a character that doesn't really fully know himself, but he ran from a lot of stuff, so it came back to haunt him, which I thought was very interesting. And what's this guy's name? Lewis Pullman. I think he did a great job as the Void, or as Bob, Robert Reynolds, Sentry, and the Void. He did a really great job. But his character, as he was dealing with stuff, you could see the look of confusion, the lack of confidence throughout his transformation. And then being in that room with White Widow, and she's in the void with him, he's just kind of like just trying to shrug off things, and she has to convince him that he's not alone. Even the Void's monologue as a villain is so it's so depressing that it's just like, the heroes try to have the speeches that are helpful and optimistic. And he's just always like, whatever you do, wherever you're at, whatever you think this is, in the end, you are nothing. It's terrible. It's terrible. And the fact that by the wave of his hand, he can send people to the Shadow Realm, that's what makes it even scarier. It's not just words. So the Void starts to fight back and break up the confidence building seminar that White Widow is having with Bob. And then we find the rest of the heroes, they start to pop up too in the Void. I guess in the room next door or whatnot. We're downstairs, I think. Yeah. So they band together and start to realize that they got to do this together. They got to figure out what this thing is in order to defeat it. So because the only person that knows what it is, they really start to console Bob. And Bob opens up a little bit more about his past and things that he did that got him there. He had childhood trauma, which that was on display. His dad beat his mom, and he was alcoholic and all that crazy stuff. And in addition to that, he would run away from a lot of things, and then he also was got into drugs and stuff, which drugs, like especially the heavy stuff, that stuff really creates an alter ego of anybody, realistically, because like it's that version of you that doesn't care about anything else except when to get that next hit, the addiction. So it's the Void makes a really accurate concept to that human aspect, that dark human aspect of when a person becomes addicted and the rest of the world to them is numb. They're numb to the rest of the world except for when they can get that next thing. They shut out all the world's problems once they get that next high. So I thought that was a very interesting breakdown of his character and then they had to actually go one-on-one. They actually had to go all-on-one with the Void, and he appeared in that realm as he took that volunteer project, and that's what got him, there. With all these versions of Super Soldier Serum, they charged him up and all that. So all that went down. The Thunderbolts were basically, they didn't have a chance, to win, as they were subdued, and then it came down to Bob himself, because the Void, I believe, as I'll be so bold based on what I saw, the Void depends on the depression of Bob in order to thrive. Because if Bob's confidence is increased, he has the ability to take control. And then this turned into a fist fight, one-on-one fist fight. Kind of, was it Superman 3? Where he touched the other kryptonite, the red kryptonite or whatever, and they made two versions, the evil Superman and then good Superman. So that part was, kind of reminiscent. Hold up. How long was this thing on mute? I hope it wasn't on mute the whole time. Oh, shoot. Hey, what's going on? Pops, Madness Entertainment Group. Y'all check them out when you get time. They have all kinds of great folks out there. I believe I said later, Mo. And hi, Pops. Yeah, so I thought, like I said, I thought the movie was fun, enjoyable. My standards are pretty low for the MCU, so it's somewhere around a 6.5, Not the greatest, but better than what we've seen in the past, like 3-4 years, no, 4-5 years. So definitely going to be what I'm rooting for amongst the triple threat this summer. Superhero movie triple threat: Fantastic Four, and Superman. Superman. I'm not gonna go to the theater to watch it. James Gunn has proven to me that he has no true passion for the character of Superman. He's more worried about putting his personal tropes into it. So therefore, his actions, I think, are very selfish. That's the best way I can put it. Each week, there's some new thing coming out about how much more worse Superman is going to be based on rumors that end up being true. Advertisements about the movie, behind the scenes stuff. It's all a bad look. It's way worse than anything Zack Snyder could have produced. So that is what it is. But Thunderbolts did a great job with what they did. It could have been what you call like a basic Marvel MCU movie, but it still had some things that had not been peeled back, should I say, like an onion. So I feel like we got a new layer. I think we got a new layer of character discovery. And then when the characters are that bad, that's when you got to explore, some true acting and some true relatable concepts. The CGI can't do it all. So that's a lesson that I hope Marvel has learned from here on out. Some people may like it, some people may not. Some people think that Marvel's on its way to getting back on track. They just gotta kick out these terrible movies and get them out of the way. Possibly. The first big step they did in this movie, 86 Taskmaster, because that's not Taskmaster. So, good job. Check out the post-credit scenes. There's 2 of them. Red Guardian steals the show, of course. My dad loved him. That was his first time he seen him. So we had a great time. It was a good father-son movie. The journey there. And mind you, like I said, in my case, before I got to see this movie with my pops, I got off of work. I was up for 24 hours, and I drove 2 hours to go see him and catch up with him, and then we got to go see the movie. And I still didn't fall asleep during the movie. So if I didn't fall asleep during the movie, sure, some people may think it was boring, but it's not sleep worthy. It's not Rip Van Winkle worthy. So that means it still catches your attention to a degree. Obviously, that's my opinion. Others may have other opinions about it. But that wraps up this show. Strictly Art Live, episode number 72, special edition, covering specifically Marvel's Thunderbolts. Asterisk. That asterisk gets answered in the movie. Hope y'all enjoyed this breakdown. I know I was probably all over the place, but rest assured, I did get at least 8 hours of sleep before I did this live stream. So I'm fired, wired, and something else to rhyme with that. But y'all take care. I'm going to try to do Strictly Art Live episode number 73 tomorrow. We're going to get back on track in this 3-day weekend I have off. Amazing. So exciting. And wrap up my weekend with episode 73. We cover the usual Devil May Cry. Episode, was it 4? Bondsman 6. And My Hero Academia Vigilantes 4 as well. Which I think 5 is out, so I might double it up and cover 4 and 5 of Vigilantes. And yeah, we'll have some fun. Do. Probably talk about some wrestling stuff too, because I've been seeing what's going on. That Seth Rollins thing is crazy. All right, I don't want to keep talking. I'm out of here. Y'all take care. I'm Rob Wilson, comic book artist. jabberjawing, doing some social commentary about the stuff that I like, and hopefully you like it as well. Y'all take care. Be on the lookout for my upcoming comic book, VKP, when it is done. In the meantime, I got artwork to sell. Follow the crawler at the bottom, the link tree, RWA Arts, RWARTS. Y'all take care. God bless. Enjoy your Saturday. Be safe. Drive safe. Hug the one you love. And God bless.
Hey, Claudius. You killed my father. Big mistake.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.